Breaking news in the NFL where Minnesota Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins is out for Sunday night's game against the Packers. Per multiple reports, Cousins has tested positive for COVID-19. The team put backup quarterback Sean Mannion on the COVID list Sunday. That means the only QBs left on the roster right now are rookie Kellen Mond and Kyle Sloter. The Vikings go in the weekend at 7-8. This leaves them on the outside looking in on the NFC playoff. We're taking a look at that playoff picture there in the conference. And there's the Vikings at 7-8 in the hunt, but still on the outside looking in at the wild card, sitting behind the Cardinals, who have already clinched, and the 49ers and the Eagles, who are right there in the mix as well. Notable playoff chances there in the NFC, and you can see the Vikings there at 10%. So they are still alive in that hunt, and this was obviously coming in before the Cousins news, but this changes everything as we head into the final 2 weeks of the season. And to see what all this means right now for the Vikings and the rest of the NFC, let's bring in CBS Sports senior NFL writer and insider Jonathan Jones. Jonathan, tell us what this means for the Vikings going forward. How long do we expect Kirk Cousins to be out?
Well, Kirk Cousins reportedly had symptoms and self-reported according to ESPN, and so as an unvaccinated player, which of course with the new protocols, whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, doesn't really matter as far as if you're asymptomatic, you could sit out for just 5 days and then rejoin. That's probably what we're going to see with Carson Wentz, another unvaccinated quarterback who, as long as he hasn't shown any symptoms, would be able to play against the Raiders. But because Kirk Cousins has shown symptoms, both games are in doubt right now for Kirk Cousins. We obviously have no clue and no way of telling whether he's going to be able to test out of the protocols before the Week 18 game for the Minnesota Vikings, but most surely he will not be playing Sunday night against the Green Bay Packers.
As we saw last week with the Saints, another team in the NFC trying to make the playoffs, kind of on the cusp there, they had to resort to using a rookie quarterback in Ian Book, and now it looks like the Saints are going to have to turn to Kellen Mond. What's the faith in Kellen Mond that he can get it done for them and keep them alive in these final 2 weeks?
Yeah, maybe against a different defense. It's not the Green Bay Packers. You'd feel decently about that, but the fact is that he's a rookie, and they drafted him for a reason. They really liked him coming out of school, but this is going to be a tall task. This is a Vikings team that's played in close games throughout. All but one of their games has wound up at the end with an 8-point or less margin, and so can Kellen Mond keep them in the hunt throughout the game against what many would say is the best team in the NFC, perhaps the best team in the NFL, two-time NFC title game participant? It's going to be a very tall task for the rookie.
Best team probably in the NFC, best quarterback probably in the NFC in Aaron Rodgers, obviously there in Green Bay, and it's a primetime game as well. So right now, obviously San Francisco and the Eagles are feeling pretty good about their chances. Here's a look at the schedule for these NFC wildcard teams and teams in the hunt. Again, the 49ers have Houston and the Rams to back end their season. Meanwhile, the Eagles, the Washington football team, that's all on the road, and then against Dallas. But Dallas looks like they're in the driver's seat for a playoff spot. So tough to say what's going to happen there with the Cowboys, who's actually going to suit up for that game. But again, the Vikings have a tough road, having to play Green Bay on the road this Sunday. So once again, Kirk Cousins out this week against Green Bay, testing positive. Jonathan Jones, what does this mean for the other teams in the NFC? Obviously, if you're looking at the 49ers and Eagles, they got to feel pretty good now.
Yeah, certainly the Eagles, who can clinch, I believe, a playoff berth here with a win and a Vikings loss. And so Eagles have to be feeling pretty good. Obviously, you never want to clinch, at the risk of someone's health. But this very surely puts an underdog, even more of an underdog, the Minnesota Vikings going against the Green Bay Packers. I think the Saints still have an outside shot here when you look at the remainder of their schedule. And the 49ers, yeah, it helps the Niners, but Jimmy Garoppolo and that thumb injury, are they going to get what they need from Trey Lance, who really hasn't played the quarterback position in the past 2 months in an NFL game? And so there's still plenty to be decided in the NFC. These NFC wildcard teams are not going to be settled by the end of the day on Sunday. This will go into Week 18 no matter what. And again, next week we're going to have to follow if Kirk Cousins can test out of protocol.
I'm kind of curious because now we've seen this happen to a couple of teams and we're inching closer and closer to the playoffs. Do we see some of these teams that not only in the hunt but appear to be in the playoffs going forward, do we see some of them try to find some veteran backup QBs to add to their roster? That way they're not resorting to some of these rookie QBs who were drafted or undrafted this year?
Yeah, it's difficult at this point in the season where you're sort of dyed in the wool, number one, but then also, frankly, a number of these quarterbacks, a number of these teams have already, in the past couple of weeks, had any number of players test positive for COVID. They're not going to have to test anymore. They are now out of protocol even until the Super Bowl in mid-February. And so in the case of the Indianapolis Colts, in the case of the New Orleans Saints, and we could go down the list of all the teams whose quarterbacks have been impacted by this or key players have been impacted by this. Fortunately, hopefully there are no lingering symptoms. Hopefully you're back 100% healthy. But, these guys have sort of checked that box almost. If you were worried about it or if you are going to be worried about it in January, heading into February, if you're fortunate enough to be playing in that month, then it's already happened and you can sort of move along. It's an inelegant way of saying it, but it is absolutely a factor. It is absolutely something that I can tell you executives and coaches around the league are thinking about, are talking about, understand and know. And so, I don't see necessarily here at this point signing a bunch of veterans or a veteran backup. In the case of the Vikings, obviously we all hope that Kirk Cousins returns to 100% health. And then, he can be there for as long as the Vikings have their playoff run.
Now, there is some more breaking news here, and this is going to affect this chase in the NFC, especially when considered the Eagles, who are the 7th seed. The Washington football team now has put wide receiver Antonio Gibson on the COVID list. So that's another wrinkle in all of this. What were the Eagles' chances the last couple weeks? Did you see them going forward with their remaining schedule?
Well, when you look at the Eagles' defense and the way that it's playing, when you understand that this is an offense who they have a quarterback who's number one in most designed runs, number one in most designed run yardage, number one in most designed run touchdowns in the NFL, they found the formula with Jalen Hurts. You don't need him to be a 300-yard passer. You don't need him to be Joe Burrow from last week, 525 yards. As long as he is accounting for 300 yards of total offense, if that's 200 and 100 or whatever sort of combination that is, as long as he's not turning the football over, as long as that offensive line, now back healthy, is blocking, for the most part, is blocking the way that we know they can, as long as that running game continues to dominate the opponent, this is an Eagles team that I'm not going to say they're going to make it to the NFC title game, but depending on the matchup that they have, I absolutely think that they can compete with any team. So, yeah, this makes, obviously, the Eagles' road even easier, but for me, I had them penciled into the playoffs even before this news.
All right, Jonathan Jones, thank you so much. Once again, Vikings QB Kirk Cousins tested positive for COVID. He will not play this week. And for the Washington football team, Antonio Gibson is now on the COVID list. Once again, here's a look at the playoff picture in the NFC. The Cardinals have already clinched at least a wild card spot, so only 2 spots up for grabs. Currently, 49ers and the Eagles own it, but a lot could change in the next couple of days, especially with the final 2 weeks of the season and COVID once again playing a factor in the NFL.